It's that time of the year when each of us want to take a deep breath, pause and contemplate about the year that was. Think about how the past has shaped our identities, what we have learned and how much we have evolved. Welcome to Colors of India. This week on the show, we travel back in time to relive the year that was. It is essential that we know the city we call our home. Delhi, for instance, was the capital of many different empires. Once on the show, we discovered a key area of this city and all we did was walk. The city of Delhi has many untold stories in every corner of every street. The Archaeological Survey of India has as many as 173 protected monuments on their list from Delhi alone. Here we have an enthusiastic bunch of Delhiites who are out on a mission. They are here to explore every nook and cranny of this city, but all by foot. One area at a time, Delhi by Foot, an initiative started by Asif Khan and Ramit Mitra, explores the many historical streets of Delhi. The Sufiana and Heritage Trail focused on Basti Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. Our first stop was at the Urs Mahal, a historical building where the annual Urs celebration of the Sufi saint Hazrat Khwaja Nizamuddin Aulia and Hazrat Amir Khusro are held.
The idea how we believe we are different from the others is that it's not completely history. If you would have noticed that we were adding some elements of, what is the essence of the place, Shairi, who lived here, not just dates, not just the names, not just the kings or the rulers who came and went.
Atop the magnificent entry gate with a vantage point view of the Basti and the Mahal, Asif helped brush up our high school history. He spoke about ancient Delhi, which functioned as the capital of 7 different dynasties, the architecture which dates back to those days, and the heritage which is still intact.
दिल्ली वालों को दिल्ली के बारे में नहीं पता, इवन अगर किसी फॉरेनर से पूछें तो उसको ज़्यादा मालूम होगा। हम देखते हैं उनके पास मैप्स होते हैं, उनके पास बुक्स होती हैं, अब वही दिल्ली के बारे में लिखते हैं। जब सबकी जिम्मेदारी है कुछ ना कुछ करना, तो मुझे अपने शहर के लिए कुछ करना चाहिए। मैंने ये वॉक्स ऑर्गेनाइज़ की। अगर सबको इन जगहों के बारे में जो है पता चल गया, तो यहाँ पे जो है ये मतलब जो अनवांटेड जो लोग हैं यहाँ पे, वो लोग उसको ऑक्यूपाई नहीं करते हैं।
When the walking continued, we found ourselves taking to smaller lanes, and lo and behold, bang in the middle of a tightly inhabited area was a red sandstone structure with well-preserved Persian blue tiles on the walls. The 16th century Mughal tomb of Adga Khan.
Today we are doing this Nizamuddin walk. Everybody in Delhi would know the place. I mean, Nizamuddin railway station being so famous. But then now that I'm here and I've seen a couple of places, I really find all the details about what the Prophet Nizamuddin Aulia was all about, his disciples and the history as well.
The monthly walk schedule is all available online. Come rain or hail or shine, this group continues on their expedition, and what is interesting is that it is not just walking. They have interesting narratives and history, well researched that too, which adds to this journey. Let's continue the walk. Leaving this behind, we moved on to the Bauli of the Dargah. More stories exchanged, and we were finally ready to head into the main Dargah. Lit up with many lamps, with burning incenses adding to the scent of jasmines and roses, prayers in the form of raised hands, green chadars, threads and whispers filled the air. A meaningful culmination of the day's expedition. Each city has its secrets waiting to be discovered. Maybe your New Year resolution should revolve around understanding your own city. Now, every week on the show, we bring you the greatest masters of music and dance at their very best. There are also times when we go beyond this to bring you behind-the-scenes news. From a narrow lane in Lakshminagar, faintly rises the sweet chime of a sitar, and the eyes automatically searches for the origins of this melody. To the locals, Nizamuddin Khan is just another name on the address register. But amongst the talented class of sitarists, he comes highly recommended. For 35 years, his sole work has been crafting sitars.
बाकी जितने भी आर्टिस्ट हैं आपके, बड़े से बड़े, छोटे से छोटे, सब ने मेरे से काम कराया। अल्लाह का शुक्र है कि उसमें कामयाब हुआ मैं, और अभी तक चल रहा है काम। अब वो बहुत से हैं जो नाम सुन के आते हैं, भी निज़ाम साहब हैं कोई, तो उनका भी काम करते हैं, वो भी खुश होके जाते हैं। एक बार जो आ गया फिर वो मुरीद हो गया, फिर दोबारा कहीं और नहीं जाता।
Every day, seated thus on a raised platform, surrounded by his chisels and hammers, Nizam works away until that perfect note resonates from the strings of his new creation. Sometimes for months in a row to make a single sitar. The sitar is also not a simple instrument to craft. The wood used is rosemary or shisham, the best of which can only be found in parts of Punjab and Pakistan. Durable German wires make up the strings, and camel bones are used for the ardh patri and the javari. The pumping or the tumbak, the big round structure at the bottom of the sitar, is made from hollowed out dried wild gourd.
हमारे गुरुजी थे सतीश कुमार जी, तो वो जानते थे इन्हें, निज़ाम भाई को, तो उन्होंने मिलवाया था कि वहाँ जाओ उनके पास। जब से मैं इन्हें कोई जानता हूँ, मेरे ख्याल से 20 साल होगा निज़ाम भाई को इस बात को, जब से इन्हीं के पास आते हैं, कहीं और नहीं जाते, क्योंकि सेटिस्फाई नहीं हो पाते। कोई अगर किसी और से भी करा लेते हैं तो वो मज़ा नहीं आता जो निज़ाम भाई के हाथ में आता है।
History traces this instrument to the 1700s and the end of the Mughal dynasty. Over the years, its value as a solo musical instrument has grown tenfold, and large companies have taken to mass producing sitars. Today, a brand new sitar sells for a minimum of 60,000 rupees. But here, in this humble workshop, Nizam sticks to the old school rules, lovingly crafting them one at a time.
निज़ाम भाई बहुत हम्बल नेचर का था। सितार की कीमत आज बहुत आसमान छू रही है। उस दौर में निज़ाम भाई बहुत महंगा अगर सितार बेचते हैं तो 12,000 का बेचते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा फर्क है। तो लोग बाग सिर्फ ये सोचते हैं कि अच्छा निज़ाम भाई तो हम अपनी मजदूरी बताएंगे या कुछ थोड़ा बार्गेनिंग करेंगे तो कम में दे देंगे। उसी वजह से इन जैसे लोग जो हैं वो आगे नहीं आ पाते। अगर यही उतनी हाइट पे कीमत रख के उतना अपना मिजाज दिखा के लोगों के साथ पेश आएँ और इंस्ट्रूमेंट को सेल करें तो ये भी काफ़ी उन रिच लोगों में आ जाएंगे।
Fame and money features last in his priority list. Neither that nor the bored disinterest of each passing generation has stopped him from following his true calling. Something that looks like a sitar can be made by a carpenter, but only people like Nizam can make the wood sing. Last January, amidst all that controversy revolving around the Literature Festival in Jaipur, we managed to steal a few quiet moments with literary genius Ben Okri. When he won the Booker Prize in 1991 for The Famished Road, Nigerian writer Ben Okri was a name that few had heard about. Today his works are translated into more than 20 languages, and he is an authority on Afropolitan literature. Growing up witnessing casual brutality is what has shaped his writing. In conversation with the author himself. Ben, now tell me, you had a rather difficult childhood. Do you think your writing has been influenced by that?
I was born in the middle of Nigeria and got taken to England as a kid by my father. And I was there till about seven and a half, and went back to Nigeria. And shortly after I went back to Nigeria, the Civil War broke out. And my childhood was therefore spent growing up in a civil war in which both my parents were on either side of this war. And so the war was a family affair. And I grew up losing relations and seeing dead bodies in the streets, seeing the courage of people and seeing the cowardice of people. And it had a profound impact on me and shaped in many ways my writing philosophy.
And when you were asked to shift from England to Nigeria, you were worried about having to live with people on the trees. Now you've become the voice of Nigeria. Would you like to comment on that and the journey that you've undertaken?
Well, first of all, I had that idea that in Nigeria people lived on trees because my English friends, who were 8 and 9 years old, they'd had that idea given to them by their parents and by their teachers. And we still have this problem today, this idea that the world has about Africa, that it's a quote-unquote a dark continent, that it's a place only of famine and wars. In fact, Africa is much richer and more magical and more tragic than that. It's a place of great richness and great complexity. And it'd be very important to actually help to change the perception that we have about Africa. And my journey has been a journey from this wrong perception of Africa into actually beginning to see, through my explorations, all these different, magical, richer, happier Africas.
So the Songs of Enchantment and the other book, both of them had the same boy hero in fact. How much of you has gone into writing these two?
The boy is not me. The novels are not autobiographical, but they are enriched and informed by autobiographical elements. But if if I were to be really truthful, I would say that a book draws out of you what it needs. A book is like a tree growing in the soil, or like a flower growing in a garden. It takes what it needs from the earth. And a book that is coming into being takes from different parts of its experience what it needs in order to become itself.
And in the book of essays, A Time for New Dreams, you've dealt with various topics, but then they seem to have a connect. Was that intentional?
The coalescing idea is the sense that we are entering a period of acceleration in history. We're entering a period in which many of the old dreams, many of the old ways of looking at the world are crumbling. And we human beings all over the world, whether it's in the Arab Spring, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in different parts of India or in America, we're beginning to cry out for new dreams, new kind of society, a new kind of justice.
So pre-Booker, you have said yourself that your writing had more purity, and now you have to deal with the expectations of people. But have you, over the past couple of years, moved beyond that and found a space and a place where you can write with the purity that you used to write before?
Before the Booker Prize, I was unknown. I was famous, but within a very small community of people. And the Booker Prize itself, as it were, exploded the perception of me. I think in a way that kind of explosion was deceptive. It took me a lot of time and a great deal of effort to work myself deliberately away from this artificial spotlight.
Very few people think the way you think.
I'm not saying this out of any sense of pride or anything. It's just that, you know, the writer needs the ordinariness of life.
You are a person who writes short stories, poetry, novels, and even essays. What medium of writing comes naturally?
I think my first reaction, my first way of interacting with any experience is poetry. I think I have primarily a poetic relationship with life, which does not necessarily mean that every reaction is takes the form of poetry. As for how do you know when something becomes a short story, I say the thing itself tells you. The idea, whatever idea you have, has within it the code of the form that it wants to become. The most important thing for us as writers is to listen to the world and to listen to what the ideas themselves are trying to tell us.
Okri's writing focuses more on the oral and literary tradition of Nigeria and is far removed from the historical narrative that can be seen in African writers like Chinua Achebe.
After a rerun of that engaging conversation, it's time for the first break on our hour-long year-ender show. Hello again. We all know that we live in a complex and fascinating country. I realized the true extent of this when I saw the colors of life in the cold, barren, brown hill town of Leh. This is Leh's old town. It was once abandoned by the local people living here, but has today a recognition of a heritage site. UNESCO is funding the restorations here along with private agencies like LOTI, which stands for Leh Old Town Initiative.
When Leh opened its doors to tourists in 1974, those who lived in the old town migrated to their farmlands, building guest houses to accommodate the tourism influx. Old Leh, with its 178 stone, mud and timber houses, sandwiched between earth walls and the many stupa gateways, was nearly abandoned. In 2003, when Andre Alexander first visited Leh, he knew that he had to do something to preserve this crumbling 15th century town, which was a significant example of historic Tibetan architecture. And today, though Alexander's untimely death has shocked his team, the restoration work at the old town continues.
old town of Leh is a historic old town, and many of the buildings in the old town which are owned by the local residents, and they are in an abandoned state, so which comes to around 190 buildings which needs conservation. So since in 2004 they took up this project called the pilot project area of this vicinity called Manekhang. So here they conserved several buildings, conserved a stupa. Then they also made this beautiful pavement with drain. So after this, then they move out to other houses. And for this initiative, the Leh Old Town Initiative, or LOTI we are locally known as. So we also received the Asia Pacific Award for conservation.
The money for restoration is equally shared by the house owners and LOTI. The main objective is to skillfully embrace modernity while well within the bounds of tradition. In situations where the owners weren't willing to put in the money, others like Laurent, who moves to Leh every summer from France, is pitching in.
In the old town you have very beautiful houses. Some of them need repairs. And here in Leh I met the LOTI association and different people working for the LOTI, Andreas, André, Benjamin, Stephen and so on. And so I thought it was better if I live in the old town and share with local people instead of staying in a guest house with foreign people. The comfort was 17th century also. Local toilets, no water, but we provide electricity, when there is electricity, of course. And the rooms are very, very small, but warm. And so during the night, when it's cold, you stay in your room and it's perfect.
While work was on to reverse the decay of this Himalayan town, the team unearthed many treasures, the largest of which was a stone sculpture that dates back to the 10th century. Today, it stands outside Lala Cafe, a meeting point for those interested in a heritage walk across Old Town.
The story of Leh's Old Town is similar to many forgotten cities, but hopefully, tourism in Leh will take a more responsible outlook. While on the topic of responsibility, I'm reminded of a meeting I had with an unapologetically bold writer.
He edited Yarana, a book of cave writings from South Asia. An established poet in this fragment of Indian poetry, Hoshang Merchant is a professor at Hyderabad Central University, and he calls himself a gender Dalit.
Sir, you are a poet primarily, but how did poetry happen to you and how did gender writing come to you?
Well, I say that poetry was forced onto me because I was always gay and I always wanted to say something because I couldn't tell what I was or who I was to anybody 46 years ago. So I had to write on paper, but then there was fear that somebody would read the paper. So I thought, let me write in secret, and the secret language was the language of poetry, because you read these poets and you never understood what they were saying. So I thought I'd be that kind of a poet. Of course I wasn't, because I had to say something that I could understand. but that's how poetry happened to me.
But then it must have taken immense courage for you to come out of the closet, as they say today.
No, you see, what happened to me was I was effeminate. And the effeminate gays are out before they know that they are out. And I thought I was so clever hiding my secret, and everybody knew that I was gay, and I was pretending that I was straight for social reasons. Then one day I said, Hoshang, who are you fooling? Nobody's fooled. You're a fool if you think you're fooling anybody. Please act intelligent and tell everybody from the beginning that you are gay.
If I were to ask you a personal question, did your family approve of this because this was 46 years ago?
No, they didn't approve of it. But as I wrote in a recent piece for Bachi Karkaria, I don't know if she'll put it in the Times, is that, the Parsis were forward-looking in the sense that they had education. And well, it was kind of Americanized or westernized. So if a child is gay, you send him to the psychiatrist. Even today, in Hyderabad, boys are beaten with straps to beat the homosexuality out. It doesn't work that way.
You call yourself the Dalit gay. If you could explain that concept.
You see, I have a woman writer whom I translate from Urdu into English. Her name is Jamila Nishat. Her husband is a Marxist, she is leftist. She is not a Marxist, she is a poet. But she has great feeling and she works with the underage girls who are married to Arab sheikhs. You know that story, no, in Hyderabad. And she told me, Hoshang, every woman is a Dalit, no matter how highbrow. Every woman in every household has to fight for her privileges with her father, her brother, after marriage, her husband, in widowhood with her son. So that is the Dalitism of every woman. So if every woman is a Dalit, every gay child is a Dalit also in the family. We are using Dalit as a metaphor here. And I was treated worse than the servants sometimes.
With the new rule that's come out,
377, reading down of 377 is only for Delhi High Court. So it is only for the area that the Delhi High Court has jurisprudence over. Must be Gurgaon and Haryana border or something, whatever. That area of Delhi. Now this applies to people like you and me who know words like jurisprudence, High Court, reading down. There are lots of people who do not know English, who do not have the wherewithal, who are gay. Outside Delhi, there is no reading down. And the thing to do is like for a person like me to go to the court in Hyderabad and say, I challenge this law, read it down. Then because Delhi read it down, then one by one they will read it down. But see, I'm not the one to do it. Maybe there is a new gay group and they might do it. But you see, just now they're kids. They're into gay marches, gay pride parade, and fancy dress balls. You know, all right, let them have fun. But you know, there is more serious work.
well, academically speaking, at least you've made an effort to get the Hyderabad University to give gender studies as a topic. But how do you see this going into other universities? Or
even in my university, I'm retiring and they have phased out the course. I think when you go full circle, then you come back to the point you start. So now my generation has done what it could. The new generation has to do it now. And I think Yarana allowed people to be more relaxed, you see? But there are also devious reasons why people do the things they do. You know, there's an ulterior motive. Single men with large incomes, they also want the gays to marry and adopt children and become like other people. This is insidious because I think that there is, just as there is a Dalit culture which is being wiped out by making them bourgeois, there is a gay culture which is being wiped out. So there is a place in our culture for the Dalit, for the prostitute and for the eunuch. But that could be once a year or once in a lifetime when I get married or I have a child, I'll call the eunuch to my house. And I understand that is better than nothing, you know, but the day-to-day grind that they go over. I'm not saying that Hinduism isn't kind. At the most elite level, of course, we have the concept Ardhanareshwar, which I don't even understand even today. You know, I've written about it in my book. It's very evolved philosophy, you know, and we have everything in India. Sexuality, bisexuality, gender equality, you know, but these are ritualized ways, you know, and rituals are for special occasions. It's not a day-to-day.
thank you very much, sir, for joining us and for talking to us about an issue most of us weren't really aware of or didn't quite understand the depth of. Thank you very much. Hoshang Merchant's books discuss in detail the politics of gender and is many a times the voice of the voiceless. Moving on, the tunes of the flute is often associated with our country, but at the World Flute Festival held earlier this year, the many possibilities of this instrument was revealed.
In the beautiful setting of the Lotus Temple rose the resonating sound from a flute. On the eve of Janmashtami, Krishna Prerna Foundation hosted its third Rasrang World Flute Festival, remembering the Lord's beloved instrument. Running along were themes of peace, love, and water.
Rastan has 4 big festivals every year, and I'll speak specifically about the Rastan World Flute Festival, which is the 3rd edition. It's not surprising to me that within 2 years, it's become a 4-city festival. You allow people to come on a platform, give them the respect, give them the trust, and that's what Krishna philosophy is all about.
The evening was packed with different hues of music. Blow was the first segment, which brought Indian, Mexican and Russian musicians together. The hall boomed with high-pitched vocals of Rajasthani folk singers. After their vibrant performance, which gave the audience a taste of India, came Nathalie Ramirez Tovar and her group from Mexico. Her flute, accompanied by various instruments, brought out a different form of music, both light and happy. Backing this was the deep sound of didgerido, a wind instrument from indigenous Australia, played by Russians Soumya Asya.
If you ask me, as a layman or as a musician, it's just music, honest music, and I'm not a big fan of the term fusion. I don't think so. That really works together.
The second segment was called Boonde, showcasing the breathtaking performance of ace flutist Praveen Godkhindi on his 8-foot-high contrabass flute. This flute's range is 2 octaves lower than normal flutes, which is why it takes a tremendous amount of breath to play it. Nevertheless, Praveen played traditional ragas meant for singing on smaller flutes. Encapsulating the audience into a trance, Naveen Kumar's meditative tune was the perfect ending for the evening. But as the lead flutist of A.R. Rahman's ensemble, he couldn't of course leave without playing a famous dance number.
On that tuneful note, we take another break on Colours of India, only to be back with more stories in retrospect. Welcome back. Colours of India has always explored the cultural ties between world's nations. A visit to Turkey for the UNESCO Convention on World Heritage reveals deep Indian connections.
We joined a team of journalists from 40 countries in the city of Sivas, Central Anatolia region, Turkey. Ancient Sivas under the Seljuk rule was an important center of trade on the Silk Road. Many mosques and madrasas from this period still dot the Sivas cityscape. like the Gok Medrese and the Sifaye Medresesi. After the Seljuks came the Ottomans, and the Sivas Archaeology Museum is dedicated to the city's Ottoman past. The Ottoman military band, which is the oldest variety of military marching band in the world, is a surviving intangible heritage from this era. Modern Turkish history is also deeply connected to this city. The Congress of Sivas is considered to be the turning point in the formation of the Turkish Republic under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. American writer, librarian and art historian Catherine Branning's book of Letters to Turkey, Yes, I'd Love Another Glass of Tea, mentions in detail Sivas and its glorious past.
For a lot of people who visit Turkey, the Blue Mosque is what catches their fancy. Oh, people have always heard of that one. The Shivas building, for some reason, is just not known to the outside world.
So that's a very good point, because everyone knows Ottoman architecture. When you think of Turkey, you think of the harem, you think of it, but really the most, in my eyes, spectacular period was this very short period of Seljuk art, because it laid the basis of this entire country of Turkey. It laid the basis in architecture, laid the foundation for philosophical and religious thought. Rumi and all of the Sufis came from this era. The Turkish language came from this era as well. So they laid the laws of Turkey came from this era. So it's really in 150 years they laid the cornerstones and the foundations of the Ottomans to follow, of the Republic of Ataturk to follow, and of the continued development that we're seeing today in modern Turkey. But it started here, but few people don't know about it because it's far away from the West Coast that most people know. It's far away from Istanbul, so that's why people don't travel here as much.
What exactly is about Turkey that brings you back again and again, apart from the architecture? Any particular aspect of their culture that you're drawn to?
This is a culture that is based in Islam, and Islam believes that a guest or a foreigner or somebody that is not in your family circle is a gift from God. And this thought that you can look at the person that you don't know across from you as a gift from God is a very beautiful thing. And that translates into their generosity, that translates into their hospitality, that translates in their very frank way of talking about you and wanting to ask you questions about things. And I find that tolerance that they have for other people, that curiosity that they have for other cultures, is very infectious.
On our agenda was also a visit to Thivri. An important center in terms of history and culture, but rarely ever seen on Turkey's travel map. It was here, in what seemed like the middle of nowhere, that the then ruler Ahmed Shah and his wife commissioned the construction of the Thivri Great Mosque and Hospital in 1228 AD. In 1985, this complex was the first to make it to Turkey's list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
This area is very isolated. That's why we came here, because Istanbul, they have also a lot of nice places, but very touristic, so touristic. So we prefer here to come here.
The Ulu Mosque and Healing Center appears to be like a poetry written in stone. The intricate carvings and the detailings on this building. It is difficult to imagine that somebody could have done this in the 13th century. The three grand gates have on them exuberant outpourings of flora and fauna, handcrafted in stone. The framework of these doorways are adorned with stars and medallions and inscriptions in a three-dimensional effect. In comparison, the insides of the mosque is rather plain.
but the seat of the Imam, carved in wood, is a surviving wonder. The adjacent hospital complex has a pool space designed so that the sound of running water could heal the mentally ill. Music therapy was also a part of the ancient healing program, and we were able to experience this in its most authentic setting.
Did you know that the word for spices in Turkish is baharat, which has its roots in the word Bharat, meaning India? And even the world-famous Turkish delight is a lot like the halwa made in the Malabar regions of Kerala. Now, while talking about cultural exchanges, how can we possibly forget the music man that did India proud?
And this was precisely the reason why Germany's ambassador to India, Michael Steiner, bestowed the Commander's Cross of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany to Zubin Mehta, the name that put India on the Western classical music chart.
Before music even starts, there is silence. This silence is what is broken when the first sounds occur, either from the flute, from the violin, or from the whole orchestra together. And this is the moment of magic. Every evening when we stand before a public and start interpreting.
The evening reception, hosted in honor of the great maestro, was attended by dignitaries from the socio-political circle.
India has an enormous culture of music of its own. Western music is an acquired taste, but there are many now growing more and more in all the main cities at least. So once you have a concert hall in Delhi, there will be more interest.
And Bharatanatyam dancer Alarmail Valli presented a short dance tribute. Her dance repertoire celebrated Prakriti or Shakti, mixing verses from Kalidasa's poems with Bharatiyar's Silapadikaram and the prayers of the Atharva Veda. Valli's dance described the goddess in all her glory.
The interesting thing is that Zubin Mehta represents something totally different because he's doing classical European music. That's his profession as a conductor of classical concerts and opera. But he has this similarity with Alarmail Valli because both believe in beauty and both believe in the excellence, that means in the perfection of the work.
In split seconds, she changed from the dancing peacock into a flowing waterfall or the clasp of thunder to a doe-eyed deer. And until finally the magic was all over and the spell broken, the audience sat transfixed, fascinated by this nature depiction.
A musician is always a citizen of the world. Our last story is one that celebrates the new while still deeply rooted in traditions. It has the underlying message of new beginnings and fresh perspectives.
Hand block printing, one of India's ancient craft legacies. A craft form that is recognized and admired world over, but is today under the threat of extinction. At Bilkua, a village in Uttar Pradesh, hand block printing was once the way of life. But now, the number of block printers have fallen to an alarming 200, and the number of block makers is even less.
जितना कारीगर जितना टाइम काम करता है, जितना वक्त लगाता है, जितनी मेहनत करता है, उसको उतना पैसा नहीं मिल पाता आम तौर से। तो कारीगर यही सोचता है कि इसमें इतनी मेहनत ज़्यादा है, मजदूरी कम है, क्योंकि जितनी वो मेहनत करता है, जितनी मजदूरी करता है, और तो उस मेहनत के हिसाब से मजदूरी कम होती है। और वजह यह है कि मजदूरी कम ही होती है कि आगे वो जो हम चीज़ें बनाते हैं वो चीज़ें महंगी बिक नहीं पाती हैं, तो इसलिए कारीगर इसमें ज़्यादा खुश नहीं है।
Carving intricate and detailed patterns onto these blocks is a craft by itself. Arshad's family has been in the block making business for generations. Like most handicrafts, block making is a tradition that is passed down from father to son. Arshad is a national award winner, and his father Sardar Hussain has won the prestigious Shilp Guru Award.
कपड़े के जो टेक्सटाइल प्रिंटिंग के ब्लॉक होते हैं, जैसे कपड़ा छपता है, ये कभी तो बहुत अच्छी मांग होती है, बहुत इसके ऑर्डर होते हैं, और काफ़ी बनने लगते हैं, कभी कम हो जाते हैं, बहुत कम हो जाते हैं। लेकिन मजबूरियां ये हैं कि किसी के पास कोई बड़ा ऑर्डर होता है या जल्दी उसे चाहिए या सस्ता चाहिए, तो हाथ के छपाई में ना तो जल्दी हो सकता, ना सस्ता हो सकता, और ना वक्त पे हो सकता, क्योंकि इसमें कई परेशानियां आती हैं, कारीगर नहीं मिलते, और महंगा भी हो जाता है, क्योंकि आजकल जो और तरह के प्रिंटिंग हो रही हैं, स्क्रीन प्रिंट या और, वो काफ़ी सस्ती हैं।
Traditional blocks have very little use these days. At a time and age when the name of a designer can sell all kinds of products, Arshad decided to experiment with his craft and collaborate with designers to give his legacy a contemporary touch.
जब हमने बनाया पहला पीस, तो उसमें ऐसा नहीं था कि एकदम चमक, क्योंकि कार्विंग में अलग अपना कलर होता है। तो हैंडीक्राफ्ट में थोड़ा बताया लोगों ने कि इसमें कुछ शाइनिंग लाइए, एक्सपोर्टर मिले, डिज़ाइनर मिले। तो ये सोचने के बाद में हमने जो सहारनपुर वगैरह, नगीना में वगैरह जो बॉक्स वगैरह होते थे, मिरर होते थे, उसके अंदर देख के सोचा कि काम को कैसे किया जाए। उनके जब काम करते देखा सहारनपुर में, नगीने में, वो देखने के बाद में हमने अपने आप को काम करना शुरू किया, कार्विंग की, फिर इनले भी किया। तो फिर एक तरीके से हमने इसको एक नए उसमें हमने लाने की शुरुआत करी।
Traditional Mughal buttas and other designs were traced onto wood, carved out, inlaid with bronze or copper wires, smeared with a coat of multani mitti, and carved again before it's polished and ready for sale. At his workshop, they now produce boxes, coasters, wall hangings and other pretty things that can all be used in a modern home.
He has just transformed it into what will suit and what will sell in the current market. He has this beautiful tree things with inlay and carving, which you can just put on the wall. Things like that. It's just a simple change. It's not a very sort of drastic new thing. but it's just adapting and having very good craft, good design, good aesthetics, but deeply rooted in what he was doing. You can say that this is a piece from a block maker. You can just tell that. The design doesn't sort of go all over the place or be modern or be abstract. It doesn't. It is rooted in his tradition, and it's a contemporary product of high quality.
Through such experiments, the craft tradition is kept alive, but it is only through properly channelized government aid that we will be able to keep our dying heritage intact and save this dwindling community of block makers.
Much like these craftsmen who have devised an alternative path to continue their ways of life, Colours of India will keep bringing you news and updates on art, music, traditions and culture, both classical and from the fringes. The response we've had so far from our viewers and other media houses have been encouraging, and I request you to continue to extend your support through our Facebook page. Until later next week, goodbye, take good care and have a promising year ahead.